Welcome everyone, I'm Fausto Carnevale, Italian accountant. Today I will explain you what is the fattura elettronica, or in English we can call it e-invoice, electronic invoice. And we are going to look at some deadlines and some new rules for the forfait regime. Before starting the video, I would invite you, if you want to have a free consultation call before the tax assessment, you can click on the link below and you will have a 15-minute free call with our Italian assistant Joe. So what are we discussing today? So first of all, this is one of the first videos about the fattura elettronica. In Italy, when you are invoicing, you need to mandatory for the companies use the e-invoice. What is this? So basically, when you issue an invoice, you have to send the invoice to the client via a digital format. So basically, this is your office. This is the office of the client. Let's say that you sell 100 euro plus VAT. So the client will ask the invoice, because for the client is a cost, for you is a revenue. In order to send you the invoice, to the client, you need a code. Each client has a code. And by the way, the general rule applies only for companies, so SRL, SPA, and other not limited responsibility company with the higher revenues. But we are not discussing today the limits. But imagine if you open an SRL in Italy, you have to make the e-invoice, even if you open an €1 SRL. So in order to send the invoice, you need a code. Then you can do the invoice, which will be sent to a big software called Sistema di Interscambio. Then the client will receive the invoice. Why they implemented this e-invoice in Italy? For two reasons. First, to simplify the invoicing, but this is not really true. But they said to simplify the process. Second, to control, this is the thing, to control the things that are invoiced. So it is like, to me, it has sounded like you cannot escape. So once you send the invoice, in theory, we could track this invoice forever. Then it's not true, because in order to download the invoice, you need 100 different permits. But for the tax government in Italy, it has been a good improvement in order to reduce the tax evasion. In order to avoid that people, they receive the payment and then they don't do the invoice. In this case, or that they do the invoice, this is worst, but it happens. They do the invoice and then they don't register the invoice. So in this way, the people who purchase a goods, he needs the invoice, so it will be more pushing. It will be pushy, excuse me for this word, but it will be more in need to ask the invoice, because he needs to register the invoice with this electronic format. Sometimes, and this is also a quick thing that I want to introduce, the accountant do the e-invoice because the client, they didn't have the software. Imagine, for instance, as a general company, not limited responsibility. They don't have the software to do the e-invoice. But you may ask, but they do have to make the e-invoice? Generally not, because they do only the small invoice without VAT, as if you go, in a restaurant or in a bar. But if a client go to the restaurant and say, hello, I'm in a trip for work, I need 10 people to hit here and I want an invoice. They need to do the electronic invoice. So they call the accountant in Italy, and the accountant still do the invoice. But the thing is, this electronic invoice, in my opinion, is a good way to avoid that people won't register the invoice, and then afterwards, on a certain way, they are more tracked, so they have to pay taxes. Until now, if you were on a forfait regime, you didn't even know what is an electronic invoice. I remind you that if you are a physical person in Italy or a forfait regime, you can do the invoice as you want. For instance, in Belgium, if you are there is no specific format to do the e-invoice. There is no e-invoice, but just to do a step back, the electronic invoice is an electronic file that you send, but of course then you can print. And when you print the PDF, because the accountant, they have like, or if you have a company, you have the software, you see what you sent. So for instance, an invoice between Fausto SRL and Joe SRL. I send the invoice with my software, and when I look at my software, I see the invoice sent, the file it's sent to the Sistema di Interscambio. I can print the invoice, and if I print the invoice, actually it is a normal format, like a normal invoice with name, code, VAT rate, etc., etc. As a normal invoice. I'm not doing here a video to describe the invoices. So for the forfait regime, it was not mandatory until July 2022, because they said if you in the previous year invoiced more than 25,000 euro, you have to do the e-invoice. So be aware, because in Italy you have to do the invoice from now on. Beware that the limits for October 2022, so just 1 month ago, you have 12 days to do the invoice after you issued the service, 12 days. Or you can do it on an extent on the 15th day of the next month. So I do the invoice today. Let's say today is November 10. I don't know exactly. Let's say it's November 10, because I don't know when the video will be posted. I have until the December 15 to do the invoice. Either I do by the 12th day, the 12th day, so November 10, November 22, or by the 15th day of the, as I wrote, n+1 month. Remember that if you are moving to Italy now, by January 2024, you have to do the e-invoice anyway. I want you to take notes on two things. First, ask your accountant how much does it cost to handle you, to give you also this service. Second, try to understand which software you can use to do the electronic invoice. I can do maybe one video in the future about this, how to do an invoice, but for now just take notes, and this is another obligation that you need to do when you move to Italy. So till next time, Fausto Carnevale, Italian accountant. The best way we can support you is if you book now a tax assessment call. If you don't know what is a tax assessment call, you can book a free call with our English-speaking partner, Joe. He moved in Italy from United States and is supporting us, especially from people, for English-speaking people. So if you want to understand more, just click in the link below. Till next time again, enjoy your stay in Europe.